Howdy, it's Kyle talking about one of my favorite subjects, atlases. I've been reading these books since I was a little kid. I'd be flipping through the pages, learning about countries and cities and just seeing where things are in relation to each other. And through the years, I've collected many atlases, including most of what I think are the major companies that do atlases, including a couple that have been discontinued, but they can be difficult to choose which one you want. They're really expensive. They can be over $100, including the Times and the Nat Geo one. So if you're interested in having a really nice atlas, you can't just go down to Barnes & Nobles and usually flip through one of them. So you have to maybe just guess which one you want or just go by a few screenshots. So what I want to do here is just kind of flip through them and show you how each of these atlases depicts different parts of the world and see which ones do better at different spots. And if you would like a really nice wall map for your house, check out Mirway Maps. There's a link in the description to the website. If you use the coupon code there, you'll get 12% off your order. They make really cool maps, different sizes. They can be framed, US, different parts of the world, physical, political maps, just really good stuff. But yeah, let's get back to some nice reviews of atlases. I'm going to start off by talking about the Times Comprehensive Atlas of the World. This is the 16th edition. This is often considered the best atlas you can get. It's one of the two major ones. It retails for about $260, so it's incredibly expensive. You can find it on special at Amazon or some places like that for less than that every now and then. But yeah, a really nice book. Comes in that nice hard case. 16th edition, just came out in 2023. So let's take a look at it here. I'm going to use that little other book there to prop it up so you don't get the glare. Table of contents of where you're going to see the map plates. The beginning of the book here is a little drab looking, not going to lie. Talks about the planets real briefly, tectonics, oceans. So this is not the best atlas, I think, for the thematic maps, but I think that's wise because these are the types of maps that can be replicated online much more easily. So you don't want to put too much emphasis on these, I don't think, even though the actual data they're showing are good. So it talks about migration patterns, economy, undersea cables, that kind of stuff. This is a really cool section in the atlas. Top physical features, largest lakes and mountains, gets kind of a cross section of the mountains, little spot of the drainage basins there. So a really cool way to show the most prominent physical features. It looks kind of drab, but I think it's actually a cool way of showing it. It doesn't go too much into these, which I think is good because this stuff changes pretty quickly. Real quick overview of the countries and their flags. The legend, how they do things here. So, but now we're getting into the meat of the atlas, and this is where, usually where atlas makes or breaks its worth. So, physical map, political map, both pretty good. I think they do a good job here with the ocean maps. You got the Pacific, and it shows all the islands, how they relate to each other within the Pacific, and then it has zoom-ins on the most prominent ones. So they do a really good job with this, I think. This is a hard part of the world to kind of show because you want to show where they all are in relation to each other, but then also zoom in a little bit. Again, you got Australia, New Zealand, and then where a good chunk of these South Pacific islands are, so it puts it in perspective. A lot of times we don't realize how close to Australia and New Zealand some of these Western Pacific islands are, like Vanuatu. This is, pretty close areas. You can fly, from there pretty quickly. So a lot of tourists go over here. So a double on New Zealand, pretty good plate here. Not often a lot of love for New Zealand, but this is a really good map of the country. A good full one of Australia. Usually zoom-ins of the more populous parts of the country here. So obviously the southeast, where you had the most people, zooms in, and even a more zoom in of the even more heavily populated area. Adelaide, all the way up there, Melbourne up to Sydney. Yeah, northeast Australia. So they do a pretty good job with Australia. It often gets the shaft in some of these atlases, as you'll see, but they do a pretty good job here. This is really good. You often don't see a zoom in on Papua New Guinea. The Solomons, another area that doesn't often get a lot of attention in atlases. So that's what I like in some of these larger atlases. You should have lesser known regions with zoom-ins on there. Physical map. I think the National Geographic maps, as you might expect, do a better job with physical features. This atlas tries to simplify it a little bit, so I think that's pretty good. Don't compete with Nat Geo for the physical stuff. Just show the basics here. Really good job, I think, on that. A real basic physical map, or excuse me, a political map, just showing the countries. yeah, I mean, nice Southeast Asia. I like how it shows the whole region. I'm not sure why you get a Manila and a Jakarta zoom in right there. I think that's perhaps unnecessary. Philippines, you often get a zoom in on the Philippines, and it's usually bigger, and they don't include these northern islands up here in the strait. But good map there. Good zoom in on Indonesia. I think this atlas does the best job with Indonesia, showing the the western portion there, eastern portion there. Just also shows Malaysia, and then Southeast Asia as a general whole. I think this atlas does a really good job, I think, in general with Asia. You want to get all of China in one relation to where it is with Korea and Japan. A zoom in on Korea, or on Korea and Japan, then another zoom in on Japan. Usually another one for Central Honshu, and yes, there is. So you want to get more zoom ins on the areas where there's more detail needed to see. So more heavily populated areas. Mongolia gets their own plate. Northern China, really good one here showing North and South Korea combined, how close it is to China. I would really like to see a full plate for South Korea. I think they've it's time for South Korea to get a full plate on some of these atlases. They're kind of up in that part of the world now. Southeast China, South China, you got some good maps here. Taiwan, part of that. I'd like to see a zoom in on Taiwan. Pretty cool zoom in on Tibet. So you really get to see the water features and some of the mountains and things at much greater detail here, although you'll see with Nat Geo, maybe the scale isn't the same, so the cartography might be better with Nat Geo for physical stuff, but this is a really good map of Tibet. South Asia, Central, again, a couple of zoom-ins on cities there. It's kind of odd. Don't think that's really necessary, but there wouldn't be anything else there, so whatever. Focus on India. South India, you want to get obviously greater detail on the big country there. Northern India, got southwestern China, or I guess far west China, Tibet. Yeah, you definitely want one here. Zooming in on here, the Ganges Plain. Yeah, I mean, just really good job with India. I think this the Times Atlas does a better job with some of the political features and showing some of the cities. You might not agree or might not think this is the best type of cartography, but what it shows is good. The one difference I have with this one, or my big complaint with this one compared to some of the other ones I'll show, is look at this map and quickly try to pick out the 10 biggest cities on here. It's tough. It's really not that easy to find where, like, there's Lucknow, but it's other cartography styles. You can find the bigger cities much more quickly. But they do show more stuff here. There's more detail in here. But I do think that India specifically needs more than just this. I think there needs to be something more Western. So I think they could use another plate of India in there. Good plate of the Middle East as a whole. Again, not random, but I mean, just interesting to have some major cities here. Here's the heart of the Middle East, Central Asia. These borders are strange here, so you really want to get some good views on that. Most of the Arabian Peninsula, the Gulf. They just call it the Gulf in here. Don't even bother calling it Persian or Arabian. Just the Gulf. Yeah, so the Eastern Mediterranean, focusing on Iraq and Syria on this one. Close in on the Eastern Mediterranean, getting Israel, the Palestinian territories, Nile Delta. So it's really cool to see. You often don't see this plate where it shows how close all this is to Cairo and the Delta, so that's nice. Good map of Cyprus. It's kind of, how are you going to draw the line there? Well, that's how you do it on this map. Zoom in on Turkey, really good here. Big enough country to get their own plate. Russia, obviously big enough to get their own plate. You want to have really good zoom ins on Russia. Not many people here, so you don't need a ton of detail. A little more detail here. So pretty good job here. Central Asia, all the stands, get them on here. Really strange borders. Kind of like the Caucasus. This border's just drawn very strangely. Got my thing here. I had this for a recent video where I was talking about the Caucasus. So you can see this is an important part of the world to show, and you want a good zoom in. And I think of the atlases I'll be showing, they do the best job here in the Times with showing this region, just a full plate of just what's going on in here. And you can really see the different divisions there. So again, simple physical map for Europe. Pretty simple political map as well. Western Russia, and you get the Caucasus in there. Moscow, central region. So you want to get zoom ins on Russia. Here's Ukraine. Now this map, this atlas came out since the war started, so you got some, nothing is really showing here that's different, but this is where you have a lot of the fighting. Crimea is usually shown as, yeah, administered by Russia, but it's usually considered part of Ukraine still. We'll see how that goes down. The Baltics, you know, Belarus. So a good job of showing in Europe. I like seeing all these lakes here in Finland. Do a good job with the northern Scandinavia, southern Scandinavia. I mean, they're really focusing on Scandinavia. I think that's really interesting because all of these atlases, there's really extra attention to Scandinavia for, I'm not sure why. Look at this giant plate of just Denmark and southern Sweden. A lot of them have this. I'm not sure why exactly, but I like this. So not many people that live there, but I like having the full plate. UK, Ireland, you know, you want to get that zoom in on the UK, central or northern England, southern Scotland. Now, see, I would like to see something more that was just southern England, something like this. You don't really get I mean, this is as good as you're going to get. I like to see something more like this with some more detail in London, but the Times is a British company, so they probably have better just England atlases, I'm sure. So maybe there wouldn't be the same attention towards England. And here, Scotland, Ireland gets its full plate. I like that. Central Europe. I like how they still put in parentheses Czech Republic. That's pretty interesting. So the subnational divisions are really easily visible on these. I like how they do the lighter purple, the thinner purple, so you can really see the individual states or provinces or departments or whatever they are with these. Here, when you get to Europe, you can see the largest cities better with the coloring in of the metro areas. You can really see just how many people live here in the Ruhr Valley area. But you know, the ones that are pulled back more, you really can't tell so much where these are. But I do like the shading on these. A couple other ones, how they shade the urban areas, I really don't like. But you get some serious zoom in on here. Germany Northeast, Germany South, Poland, you know, Czechia, Slovakia. So you get a lot of zoom ins for Europe. You get way more attention to detail here than in Asia. You know, Northwest France, Northeast France, Southeast France. So you're really getting some serious detail with other parts of Europe. So again, with this being an English company, a lot of attention on France and Germany more than on the UK itself. You know, there's more detail than Spain, or about the same detail. So you're getting a lot of heavy Europe on here, which is common for some of these. Yeah, I mean, they do a good job. I like these. I like having this much detail on there. I wish you'd have more detail on some of the other parts of the world as opposed to some of those thematic maps, which I think are better served online. These aren't the kind of maps you want online. You want these in a book like this. So that's my personal take on it. I'd rather see more of these, fewer thematics. But you know, even if you have to pay $5 paywall to get to the thematic maps on here to see them online, I'd be fine with that. After, of course, $250 for the book, you should get it for free. All right, so Africa, a good map of Africa as a whole. These are, you know, again, pretty simple overall continental maps. A good shot of Northwest Africa. You got some, you know, dotted lines here. They do a little bit of explaining in here. You don't need a ton of detail just because there's just not a whole lot to show from a non-physical standpoint. You got the Northeast Africa. This is one where you really have to have, you know, a little more zoom in because the countries are small. But here's a huge problem I have. Okay, so I've recently been here, Senegal and the Gambia. So when I got this atlas in 2023, I'm only really familiar, like detailed familiar with a few kind of obscure countries. One of them being the Gambia. So when I first got this atlas, the very first country I went to was the Gambia to see, you know, what do they show? Let's zoom in on it. All right, so here's the Gambia, this country here. It's going to be hard to see, I guess, unless I can zoom in, but where my finger says, or is, it says Serekunda, and over here, Kanifing, between Banjul and the word the Gambia. Well, that's not where Serekunda is. Serekunda is actually where Kanifing is written. Kanifing is more like a county on an American equivalent. where Seracunda is the largest city in the county. So the one country, the really obscure country I do know, I go straight to it and find an error. Now, I know with hundreds of thousands of things in these atlases, it's not going to be perfect. But here's the problem. Seracunda is the biggest city in the Gambia. So if you're missing something, okay, maybe these two get mixed up. I mean, that's bad enough. But Seracunda is literally the largest city in the Gambia. So Banjul is the capital, but not the largest. So if you're not getting I mean, that's a bad thing to miss. And I know the Gambia is a small country. It's obscure. Nobody cares, right? But if the one country I know really well that's kind of an obscure country, I find a mistake, that means there's lots of other mistakes. And that hurts my soul. Now, with that being said, I scoured through Senegal, parts of the U.S., parts I know really well, and didn't find any other mistakes, but that does hurt seeing Seracunda right there. It's wrong. That's the largest city in the Gambia. So that's a bad mistake, I think. So I wonder how many other mistakes there are. And as a whole, Africa doesn't get a great representation in this atlas. You get some good maps, but you certainly don't get the detail, the number of plates you get with Europe. You got some interesting divisions there. DRC. I do like the coloring, how they kind of show things here, the different types of landscapes. Let me zoom out here. So yeah, I mean, sorry I didn't zoom out before, but Africa just doesn't get the same attention that you get in Europe, unfortunately. And I can understand in the past when, maybe 50 years ago, it was just little villages. There wasn't really much there you might want to even have, or you would even have on a map. But now it's not like that anymore. There's a lot of people. There needs to be a greater concentration or a greater display of some of these areas. Good zoom in on just South Africa, but I don't know. There needs to be some more plates for Africa. So I'll show another atlas later on that does Africa way, way better than that. So I do like this, though. You often don't get much attention on the Atlantic and Indian Ocean islands. So good stuff here. You get to North America. Now, for me as an American, I don't really care about how these atlases do North America because, I have other means of looking at North America, as you'll see. But Canada always gets screwed in these things. So you get the full one of Canada, right? And you get a double spread of Alaska. As an American, that's ridiculous. With so many other areas that could really use something else, a double spread for Alaska is rough. So, but here you got Southwest Canada, South Central Canada, Southeast Canada, and the Maritimes. That's all you get for all of Canada. And that's actually better than some of the other ones will do. Canada always gets screwed. Oftentimes it's just one for Western and then one for Eastern, and that's it. So again, I don't care about the U.S. much on these world atlases, but if you are from other parts of the world and you do want a good North American atlas, I can say this one's pretty good. You go into a lot of detail here. I would like to see this scale of detail again in Southeast England or the Ruhr Valley in Germany, or again, this other spots we could really use this. So this is good for here. If you're not American, this is a great, or if you are American, this is a great showing of the heart of the megalopolis. So yeah, different. It's good for the U.S. It's not my go-to as an American. I go to another one I'll show later, but this is pretty good. I don't think you get an indication of. You really get to see. You don't feel like this is way heavier, higher elevation than this. I don't know. It's a good job, but not my personal favorite. I don't like how they do this. It's kind of what I was saying just a second ago. How they handle the national parks, and I don't know. That's not. I don't like it. But that's details as an American that I would know, and there's certainly going to be those types of details in China or Egypt or anywhere where I would like to see better detail and would like to see it displayed a little bit better. Texas, I like showing Texas like this, where it does cut off the panhandle, but if you show the entire panhandle, then that makes the whole state smaller. Mexico, you always want to have one of just Mexico, and you want one like this too, where it zooms in, but I would rather have greater detail on this and another one that's greater detail on that. No atlas does that. None of them do Mexico well enough. 120 million people there, guys. It should have better representation in an atlas. They do a really good job here with the Caribbean. You got Florida, you got South America. You put them all in there so you can really get how they are in relation to each other. Zooms in on the larger ones here. It's not the best job of the Caribbean, but a pretty good job. I'll show you one better, but I do like how at least you really get an idea of where these are, because you've heard of these places, but it's hard to know where they are. South America, well, Africa always gets screwed in these things, and well, South America usually gets it even worse. So you got Northwest South America there, Northeast, Central, Southeast Brazil, Pacific Coast, and then Argentina. And that's all you get. Other ones do Brazil way better than this. You'll get a nice zoom in on this heavy populated corridor, Sao Paulo, Rio. For as big as Brazil is, for as many people that live there, a very disproportionate number live just here. And Sao Paulo and Rio are actually kind of close to each other, especially for how big Brazil is. All right, so Antarctica. I think these are really good. I like these ocean ones. It's very simplified, so you just see the major things you want to see. So if you don't want to get too deep into the oceanography, no pun intended, these are pretty good. I like how they show these. Yeah, this has done a really good job with how they show some of the topography there. Arctic. And so there you go. And as with most atlases, a good chunk is just going to be the index and glossary in the back. So overall, I think this is a good atlas. There's many ways to improve it, I think. And for what it costs, I mean, there needs to be a few more places, guys. There's Mexico, Philippines, so many countries that need something shown in bigger. Africa, South America, you need to do a much better job with that. Again, like I was saying before, I could do with less of this, because these are the types of things you go online for nowadays. I don't need these in here. Maybe a few basic ones, but you know, I want more plates. I want more maps. So anyway, that's the Times Comprehensive Atlas of the World. It's the most expensive one you can get. It is very good. I know I sound like I'm complaining a lot, but for this price, it should be pretty close to perfect, and it's not quite there, but it does look really cool. Okay, so now I'm going to move on to the National Geographic Atlases. These are the other ones, the main competitor for the Times. I have the 7th and 8th. This is actually kind of old. There's a new one coming out maybe this year, maybe next year. I'll get it when it comes out. This one's a hardback, but I'm going to go through this one here. It's the newer one. So, as you may expect with Nat Geo, it's going to be more emphasis on physical geography. And so again, this one is about, what's the date on this one? I think it's a good 20 years old. Well, I don't know how old it is. I thought 20 years old. So, you know, there have been some major changes. I do like this. The one thing I like about Nat Geo is you can tell when it starts off with this, you know it's got geographers working on it. You do want to go over cartography and how you display maps. I think that's a huge thing you need to show. Good map here, real good map. Real good map here. So like I was showing with the Times Atlas, you don't get that level of detail with the ocean, but you get credible detail here. So this is what you expect from Nat Geo. You want the more physical geography detail. I like this map as well. The political map is pretty good. This is disgusting. I don't know what, this is gross. What a waste of 2 pages. Colorful too, so waste of ink. That's gross. That's so gross. I would hate to think the newer editions have that. Tectonics going into this. Now when this one came out, you know, obviously 05 or so, the internet was obviously a big thing, but I'd like to see how these look now that the internet is everything. So these are good freshwater. This one looks really good. I like how it shows how Canada's, you know, sitting on all the fresh water in the world and just hoarding it all. Think how rich Canada could be if they just sold all that water to California. All right, so you got climate, you got some good stuff here. Again, this is gross. Like these new chapters they introduced, like what were they thinking with this? This is stupid looking. A waste of a plate, honestly. Good population graphs here. You zoom out a little bit. I like this, shows different cultures, but you can tell the people that are behind this are more nerdy geographers. The Times, I think, did a good job with a lot of stuff, but I feel this, you can just tell the types of maps are showing and how they show it. These are more geographers involved with this. So, but again, this is an older map with how they are with the internet age more fully into effect. We'll see how it looks. So similar thematic maps here as the other ones. So I'm going to kind of go quickly through these. I think these look better. I think they're the way that they show the thematic maps are better. All right, so now we're getting to the meat of it. And so with Nat Geo, you just get a better representation of the natural landscape. So I think these are good, but we'll get into more stuff here. Their political geography has always been, I've always had a love-hate with it because of how they do some stuff, but you know, we can't deny this. This is really good. But yeah, I mean, I like it, but there's always been something about their style I wasn't always the biggest on. And this is printed. This is in the U.S., so this is not going to be as ton of detail on the U.S. That's actually kind of a gross map, really. I don't like this one at all. Yeah, I don't like that one. So I think one of the issues I had is in a political sense, when you put words at an angle or sometimes curved if it's a long word like Louisiana, I think that doesn't work as well in political maps. For physical maps it makes more sense, but I've just never been at like Indianapolis here. I was curved. So I'm just not as big on how they've done that. That's always been kind of a weird OCD type thing I've had with Nat Geo maps, but the overall cartography is still good. I mean, and a lot of folks definitely prefer this to the time. So the fact that I have this weird thing about curved and angled words is just a Kyle thing. Yeah, these are good. So you don't get the same detail, except you also get this double spread of Alaska, which makes more sense for Nat Geo, focusing on more physical stuff. But that's a waste of a plate for the Times one. This is great. You don't get this ever. I think that's, you can also say it's kind of a waste of a plate to have just Hawaii, but you never see all of Hawaii like this, especially like this, showing really all of Hawaii. So good job here. But Canadians, don't blink. Western, Central, Eastern, and that's it. That's all you get for Canada, and that's usually how it gets. It gets kind of left. Who cares about Canada, right? Yeah, there really needs to be something like this. Canada definitely deserves a zoom in right there. Mexico, a lot of big words, a lot of stuff gets angled and curved, so that's just me again. But that's all you get from Mexico. I mean, come on, guys. That's bad. The newer editions better have one of just that. And like I was saying before, I want to see this and this. 120 million people, guys. That's too big. Great Central America, though. Really, really good. Shows the largest, well, I guess not quite all the largest, but some of the largest islands here. Really good Central America all at once. This is really busy, but I do like how it shows everything like the Times one. You get Florida and South America. I think it's a little bit too busy. They want to, yeah. Well, no, it's got to be, because these are all physical features, bays and things. So no, I take it back. This is really good, but it does look busy because these are small islands. Perhaps too many towns, because I've been to some of these places. These are talking about towns in the hundreds of people. So, but good maps overall. South America is going to get screwed again, because it always does, although this is a very nice map. So you've also got the UK divided up here, the colors here. But yeah, that's all you get. Like, that's it. This giant atlas, and I need more. And then Denmark gets its own. So it's kind of just curious how they decide who gets plates, where Denmark gets its own, but then Spain gets, so it's weird how they do it. But all of them tend to give a little extra attention to Scandinavia. I'm not sure what that is. The old Danish and Swedish Atlas lobby. Got to watch out for them. Some shady folks there. Yeah, so these are good. I like the Times, I think, a little bit better for their political maps, how they show the cities. Because like I was saying with the Times, try to pick out the cities. Well, try to find the biggest cities here. It can be difficult. You look for the all caps, but it's yeah, it's not the best in terms of political geography, but it is still very good. It is still very good. And if it weren't for the curves, I wonder if I'd probably like it a lot more. Again, that's just me being stupid. I like seeing all of Greece in one. Western Russia. You get to Asia. You know, again, these are really good. A lot of detail you need to show in Asia, so it's especially when you get to China, you really have to choose how much of it are you going to be showing. Middle East here, I like seeing basically all of it. You get all of Turkey. A lot of text here describing things. A lot of text here in Cyprus describing things. So, but this is, you got to have a map of this. I would almost like to see one like in the times where it's just this, so you really see the more conflict area. I mean, you don't want to, you know, focus on conflict, but I would like to see a nice, you know, more of a zoom in on that. Old enough map, old enough atlas to where this is still a dashed line. I thought that was settled by now, but I guess not. This area, I think it's up here, it used to be called the neutral zone or something on really old atlases. Yeah, Central Asia, Kazakhstan gets a nice little spread here. India, look at that. That's all you get. Over 1 billion people, 1.5 billion people, most populous nation on earth. It was second in the world at this point, and that's all you get for Asia, or for India. Southeast Asia, pretty good seeing all of Indonesia at once. So I like these. China, there's a lot to show, a lot of curves and angles there. Yeah, so I mean, as you can tell, I'm not as big on this one. This is not my go-to when I'm looking for physical or for a political feature, looking for cities and things like that. So I'll see what the new one's like. I'll probably get it when it comes out. Yeah, and that's it. That's all you get for West Africa. That's it, literally. I need this, guys. I need that one. That's a lot of countries, a lot of people. I need that. I need this. I need Morocco. I don't need this much Sahara. I mean, I'd like to see this scale, but I need this. I need this. I need Nigeria having its own. I need this. I need the Rift Valley, this part of it being zoomed in. Everybody gives Africa the short end of the stick on these things. Of course, Australia usually does get kind of screwed too. Yeah, that's it. That's all you get for Australia is just Australia. New Zealand gets almost as much as you get Papua New Guinea. So I think they do a good job with the ones they offer. There just need to be more. There need to be a lot more plates in this atlas for what it costs and for how thick it is. It's almost like where are all the pages? What are they doing with these pages? So I'll go more into like this kind of stuff. This is where they really kind of, you know, do the best. So this is why you would want to get one of these. You want to get ocean detail. But I mean, if you're going to do ocean detail, how much, you know, if you're going to specify, you know, that be one of your main things, how about a zoom in here? How about some more detail? You know, if that's your best thing, go in, because these are really beautiful maps. This is really great way of showing the Antarctic region. I mean, this is, but how about give me some more, you know, kind of thing, if that's going to be your best thing. And ultimately, this is where this atlas, I think, fails. I really hope this is not in the new editions. So these are worthless. What are you ever using this map? No, forget it. No, these are stupid. These are not the right scale for this atlas. These are fine, like this here. You know, the ones at this scale I think are fine. This scale is pointless. When are you using this scale of Sao Paulo? I mean, come on, man. You don't need that. So I think there's a lot of wasted space here. These are good. Again, I like these more detailed ones, but this of Milan, why? When are you ever using this map of Milan? So I think there's too much space used on this section of the, and with some of these maps often being ones that are bettered online, you know, I don't need these. This is taking up a lot of space that could have been used for plates of other countries, zoom-ins. I mean, you get 2 pages for Australia as a country, and then this for just the cities. And look at this. When would you ever use this scale for Melbourne or that scale for Sydney? Why? No. I don't usually like a lot of astronomy stuff in atlases, but it makes more sense for Nat Geo. So I do like this, showing the moon. I think there's Mars as well. The Mars. So I think, you know, they do a good job on what they do. It just needs to be more of the good stuff and less of the city and kind of fluff. This is cool. I don't understand any of the type of stuff that's on these pages, but it's cool. Again, these intros to chapters are so gross. And this is the other thing where this has been replaced by online. So I hate to think they put this much detail on all these countries. I mean, this is a lot of pages on this. This is stuff you can get online. I want the basics. Give me that. Maybe that at the absolute, not even that much though. I don't, this is stuff, this is what the internet's for. So, and then it goes over the states and it's gross. I mean, oh, it's so gross. Americans, this isn't good enough. We don't need this. And if you're outside of the US, this is not the, I don't know, you know, whatever. So I like these. These are really good. So again, when it comes to physical geography, Nat Geo does good. They do good with these climate graphs. But man, so we'll see what the new one's like. I think this is okay. If you're going with one of the big ones, I'll take the Times over this one. But yeah, a lot of folks like this one better. It's more colorful. It can often be more visually appealing, but I do like the Times over this one. So if you're going to go with one of the big ones, if you're going to spend $200 on an atlas, I do recommend the Times personally, unless you specifically just want physical maps, the ocean maps, mountains, stuff like that. This, you know, this is the one to go for. But if you want the more rounded everything, do go with the Times. Next up is the Oxford Atlas of the World, and believe it or not, they publish this thing every single year. So every year there's a new edition. This one's from 23, so it's already outdated. Now, even though it's smaller, the Times and the Nat Geo ones are larger. But despite that, these are considered just as good in terms of the quality. These cost, I think, at least $100. I'll put the price on. But because they come out every year, you can find one that's a couple years old. It's not outdated because there hasn't been that many changes. So we'll take a look at this one, see how this one looks. Because look how thick it is. Even though it's, even though it's smaller, it's thicker. So let's see if this Oxford is actually any better. So again, this comes out every year, which is kind of weird. And you'll see how that plays out into a couple things I don't like about this atlas. The fact that it does come out every year. So starts off with this. Great. Every atlas will start off with this. That's not the best way of showing it, but I think that's how every atlas should start off. I like this. Just give me the basics. Absolute basics. They know this stuff's going to be outdated very quickly. Give me that. Great way of showing physical dimensions of, physical features. Really good job. Largest lakes, things like that. So put it really quickly. Because again, internet is where you get this kind of stuff. Now, this is the issue where I have with the Oxford Atlas. I have no problem with this, like biodiversity on the brink or whatever. They're showing some good things. I don't mind what they're showing. I don't like this map type, that projection. But because this comes out every year, this is kind of like a new thing. So they have the next year one will focus on something else. So each one has 6-8 pages on something else that's different. And then this is the part where it's cool, but do you need it? So every year they choose different cities, and they can be kind of random. Prague, here's Malta, these are cool to see, but they take up a lot of space. These types of pages don't hold up the best in books. Like in 10-20 years, these don't look as good. And I get it, they're different places, but I just think there's better use of the space in here. And again, I think there's too much space on this. I don't need this much on these, but I'll take this over some of those city maps and Nat Geo as far as wasted stuff. But this is a lot of space to be spent on that. So let's get to the actual maps here. It starts off with the universe again, solar system. This is really important. I'm glad they include this. This is very like geography textbook kind of stuff. Shows you the Earth-Sun geometry and just how, just how the seasons are come to be. I need to hold this one a little bit better. So geology, So I think this is good stuff. Atmosphere. This looks like straight out of a geography textbook here. So yeah, I'm assuming these thematic maps are the same each edition. I can't imagine they can't be completely different thematic maps each year. So there might be one or two just different, but yeah, I think these are done pretty good. Yeah, so population, cities. So I mean, that's all it does for cities here. I think that's good. A lot of this stuff is, you can get it other ways. The atlases, they got to give you a reason to buy the book, especially when they're $100 or more. And thematic maps are not going to get you to buy an atlas. Now this is good. I like this kind of stuff. This page here shows the different organizations and how things are working and are not working. Energy resources, mineral resources. So yeah, I mean, I do love thematic maps. I just don't want these atlases to focus too much on them, because a lot of the stuff, I mean, some of the stuff is going to change so quickly. Like COVID. Some of the stuff is going to just, distribution of spending, fertility, gender equality, these things will change quickly often. So, all right, so this is where this atlas is gross. It's so gross. Look at these. These are disgusting. These are horrible. These are like the Nat Geo ones, but worse. This scale. Look, if you're from Boston, when would you ever need this map? If you're not from Boston, when would you ever need this map? These are terrible maps. These are terrible. And they take up a lot of space, too. So I do like some of these that are more zoomed in, kind of like the Nat Geo ones, but these are just gross. Like, look at this map of London. It's disgusting. This one's cool. Legos. What? I'm going to Lagos this year. I want this map to be the one that these are terrible. It's a waste of space. Again, this doesn't make me want to buy this book. It makes me wish you used these pages for more plates that I'm going to complain about that you didn't have. So, again, these are, a lot of people will like these, but I don't think, you don't like that. There's no one likes that. That's gross. And that one is cool. Some of these are kind of cool, but most of these are not. Okay, so now let's get to the meat of it. But the problem is we're getting to the meat of it, but we're already 150 pages into this thing. All right, so starting off with the Arctic and Antarctic, not the best looking maps, let's be honest. Islands of the Atlantic, it's cool that you get attention on these. I'm not a huge fan of this cartography at this scale. Greenland, Iceland, you get their own. I think that's good. Iceland doesn't need the 2-page spread you got in the other one, but I mean, it's always nice to have more. So yeah, these are all right. I think they know they're not going to compete with Nat Geo. One thing that's also very important to note, I didn't mention, is the company that makes this is the same company that does the Times. So this is the same company. So what it is you can't have, they don't want to. Oh no, I'm sorry. It's no, forget it. A different one is a different part of the Times. But so you'll see another one that's part of this company that does one. But so they don't want to compete with each other though. And you got the Scandinavia, and again you get this just southern Sweden and Denmark, and then you get just southern Norway. So all these have these weird extra attention to detail on Scandinavia. So, I mean, this is not my favorite style of cartography, but I do like how you can see the mountains better here. I think on some of the smaller islands it looks kind of weird, but I think within this reference it's pretty good. But yeah, it's just not, I don't know if it's the font or I'm just not sure what it is about this one, the cartography, that I'm just not, I don't know. It's okay, but it's not my go-to. This is not the one I pull out very often for most parts of the world. So different areas, each of these atlas can be better at. So Goode of the Caucasus here. So this is, again, another spot I was looking at in another recent video. So you want to have good idea of what's going on there, especially when you show the mountains there pretty well. So I think the way they do shading is good at some of these larger scales, or excuse me, smaller scales. All right, so again, you can see the where the mountains are very well. So I think that's where it does a good job with it being a little more simplified. It doesn't show as much stuff. So here you have Western Spain and Portugal, Eastern Spain, Northern Italy. So I mean, you get good detail. You get a lot of attention on stuff in Europe, but this doesn't look anywhere near as good as the Greece ones and the other atlases. I do like a little bit of zoom in on some of these Mediterranean islands. That's really nice. Cyprus is always kind of funky to show. You get to Asia. Good here. I like this one. Gives you really idea of the highlands and just some of the stuff going on here. A lot of weird borders here. This one came out just before they changed officially Nagorno-Karabakh there. So the new one from 2024 should have something a little bit different there. I believe that's the only big change in the world in the past 5-ish years, for an atlas at least, I think. So yeah, you really can see that with the coloring just how much higher the Tibetan Plateau is than, it's just, yeah, they do a really good job on the coloring. The font, I think, is where it could, I don't know, maybe it's not the font. I'm not sure what it is. What is it, guys? I'm just being crazy. I'm too much of a perfectionist. It used to be perfect, but this is good. It shows the mountains, shows the physical features. You get an idea of where the biggest city is. I like how these little squares. So that's more of a Rand McNally style, which I think makes it easier to find where the larger pop centers are. I can just point to these really quickly because you can just see that symbol. Of course, I know where these towns are anyway, but you can just see that symbol much more easily than just similar circles and dots. So now I'm not sure in terms of size of book, do I prefer this size or the other ones? This size I think is easier to manage, of course, but you need to have bigger zoom in. So again, so this is just the Philippines. So that Times showed the Philippines on a much bigger page, but they also included these northern islands. So what ended up being shown here is not as much as what's being shown here. So even though the book is smaller, the pages are smaller, depending on how they do it, it could actually end up being more detailed in the smaller book. So yeah, India, at this scale, you can really see just how many major cities there are, and just get a really good idea of just how there can be 1.5 billion people there when you have this many of that symbol, which is the cities over 1 million. Those are the ones over 5 million. So again, I think that's where they do their best here, is differentiating between elevations and cities of size. But when you get into the meat of it, it isn't always the best. So yeah, it does a decent job with that. So this, it does get more of a zoom in. This is another example of a part of the world where you get more detail with this map, even though the bigger pages, it just showed more scale, but it showed farther out. All right, so how does this one do Africa? Got a nice one there, just the Nile area, central north, which is basically the Sahara. Really gives you an idea where the mountains are and just kind of how the terrain changes even within the Sahara. It's not just a giant sand dune. Good one here. Shows the mountains well. This kind of funky border. Doesn't show the Moroccan wall. Some do, some don't. It's not really official. I like this. This is the one I was talking about where I like to see West Africa zoomed in. These countries are very small. I want to see more of what's going on, although I don't think, there's not one just for Nigeria. Nigeria needs a spread on its own. So I would like to see Nigeria with its own, and then this part of West Africa, Senegal to Benin, being its own as well. So, but this one does a pretty good job with Africa in general. So this is Central West, the Congo Basin for the most part, the Horn. You really see the highlands here in Ethiopia, Uganda highlands. Some interesting borders here. You can really see just some of the difference with Somalia and the Somaliland. You can just see, all right, there's obviously a physical geography, something going on here, because it's, every political conflict has some kind of physical geography aspect to it. So Mother Nature is always in control ultimately. Yeah, really good one here of just the Rift Valley. So this is what I was asking for in the much larger atlases. So the Times and the Nat Geo are the bigger atlases, but they don't do some of these areas in Africa at the same scale. So it's not my favorite cartography at this scale, but they do more stuff at this scale. So again, I think I do a better job with Africa on there. So if you're more interested in seeing things there, this is the better choice. So I think, so we got West Africa here, or West Africa, West and East Australia. Then you do get a good Southeast Australia there, which is, I think, important. This is gross. This is gross. This is so gross. I would rather have it like this, like the other ones do, North and South Island. This is disgusting. This is disgusting. I hate this. I don't like this either. I want to see... Okay, no, you do see it here. But I do want to see where all these island countries and territories are in relation to each other. And it's harder at this scale because there isn't much over here. I want this. See all these purple lines? That's where I want to see a little more detail. So this place more focused on the ocean itself as opposed to the places in the ocean. All right, so now we get to North America. Guess what? Canada. Western Canada, Eastern Canada, and that's it. So Canada, it's so weird how it always gets screwed in these atlases. Yeah, so Alaska, all you get is that. That's good enough for this one. The Nat Geo one, I can understand why you want the big... Oh, take it back. They do have a bigger one here, but I'm not huge on this, how they do the U. I hate this. This is so gross. Look at this. It's gross. If you have to do it at an angle, that's disgusting. Don't do that. That's gross. Now, again, so if you're an American, you know where the big cities are, but you can, if you're not American, you can find them pretty easily at this scale. You find these squares, and they're really easy to point out where the bigger population centers are, much better than the other ones we looked at so far. So I think that's a really good way of doing it, a really good design choice without it looking completely ridiculous. Maybe the font size is a tiny bit too large, but I just think that's a better job of showing differentiation between city size. So got Mexico, but that's it. You don't get to zoom in on Mexico. That's bad. Again, with this one, with it being all highland and being all brown, it's so hard to see. I mean, you can't really. Yeah, so not a good showing of Mexico. I like how they do this, individual islands. It's pretty good. It's not the best showing of the Caribbean, but it's all right. And of course, you're going to get screwed in South America. They don't get anything. Get north. Actually, they do a better job with here. I take it back. This one is, they do kind of like Africa. They treat South America a little bit better. So yeah, Northwest here, Peruvian highlands. I don't like the way that one looks, but I do like the scale of it. Really shows the Andes Plateau. Yeah, I mean, so not the best. I like to see that, but so if what you want is a little more detail in lesser usually shown areas such as South America or specifically Africa, even more so, this better detail, even though the pages are smaller. This one doesn't do as well with Europe, so if you want more detail with Europe, I think the Times and that Geo ones are better, but a little more manageable size, a little more attention to detail on some of the poorer areas in the country, although again, not my personal favorite type of cartography. All right, now I'm going to look at the Collins World Atlas Complete Edition. This is the one you rarely hear about. You often hear about the Times, Nat Geo, and Oxford, but this is the one that's often forgotten. It's done by HarperCollins. So I was saying before, I was mistaken, but this is the one that's done by the same group that does the Times. So as a result, it's smaller, and they don't really want to compete too much with its own. So it's going to do things a little bit differently, which is good. You don't want to, you want people to have a reason to buy both of them. They can't be the exact same. So, but you rarely see much about this one. This one is the most recent edition from 2016. I think the new one is supposed to come out reasonably soon. We'll see. So it starts off with time zones, international organizations, world, and this one is, in terms of its size, is the same dimensions as the Oxford, so about the same page size. Earthquakes and volcanoes, that's pretty good. The other ones haven't shown that at all. Climate, temperature predictions, land cover, pretty good map there. And these aren't ones you saw in the Times. The Times thematic maps really weren't that good. Some of them were, but most weren't. So I think this is maybe a little bit better for some of these thematic maps. Got some interesting photography on some of these too. I like how they show the RLC. This is something that's, you don't see too much. We haven't seen it all in these atlases. Population growth, deforestation. So I like some of this stuff. But again, kind of like the Times and the Oxford, I don't need stuff like this that's going to be, look, it's a beautiful image, but I don't need an atlas like this for stuff like this. All right, so let's get to the maps. So I like how it does the UNESCO sites on there. Got something just different. You got to have something different. So overall, this cartography, I kind of like it. I like the coloring of it, the shadings of the mountains. I think the red ink on the shades of green, I think looks pretty good. So I do like this cartography. But unlike the Times, or excuse me, unlike the Oxford, it's not quite as easy to find immediately the big cities. And they do have these kind of like Star of David looking things as for the capital. But it's not always as easy to find the major cities here. They do have a little bit of yellow on there, but still, these are clean looking maps. These are, this is good looking stuff for the most part. You can definitely see the cities at this scale. Scotland, Ireland each get their own plate. That's good. Get into Europe. The border is not the easiest to see. You can really see the train lines more than the international borders, which is a little interesting. So, good show of the Mediterranean. Yeah, that's kind of gross how it splits it right there. But I get why they did that, but it's not my choice of how I would show that. This looks pretty good. I like how it shows here. The Kosovo border there, not defined, or not officially defined at least. Well, I guess people officially recognize it. What am I talking about? All right, so going into Asia, so not a ton of detail with that. There wasn't as much individual plates there as you saw with some of the other ones. Russia, you go down to Southeast Asia. So here's another example of the Times, their way of doing it. So they show Philippines here, including the northern islands. So as a result, the main heart of Philippines shows up less. I preferred the other way, where these islands were not shown at the same scale, and it was just the heart of the Philippines. It's a big country, and the way it's shaped, it's perfectly set up for a plate like that. So I prefer that one. I like this. I like when they show this contiguously. Sometimes you'll see, as you saw before, some of the other ones, this will be split. The Times did Indonesia by far this Indonesia Malaysia spot the best. Again, I like the way these look. I think these are good. You don't get as many plates. The book is thinner, so it's the same size as the Oxford in terms of page dimensions, but it's a much thinner book, so you don't have as many plates. This is a good one. I like this one. I like to see more zoom-ins here like that and also that, but this is a pretty good job here. In many ways, I like the cartography of this one maybe better than the Times. So they're both HarperCollins. I would maybe rather see this cartography at the Times, the big book, and then the cartography in the Times be the one in this smaller Collins book. But I think when it comes down to cartography, it's a very personal decision. You know, again, when I was complaining about the curved, you know, the way that just curved here, I think it's just the way that Nat Geo does their curved. I don't know. But that's just a personal thing. A lot of folks really, really like the Nat Geo ones better. Yeah, the way I mean, obviously, if you're looking at this, you know this isn't right next to that. But the way it looks, it's almost like Cyprus is right there. I mean, we know it's not, but I don't think that's the best way. And that's all you get for India. That's it. Northern, southern. That's, I mean, now, but to be fair, again, this book is thinner. It's not meant to be, it doesn't have the word comprehensive in its title. So it's, you get the gist, you get some good stuff. I like this one of the Caucasus and Turkey. So this is, you know, it's good. It's just not going to get the great number of detail. But this atlas is much cheaper than the other ones. So it's, from a price wise, it's pretty good. Africa, there, boom. South Africa, and that's it. So yeah, that's rough when you get that little attention to South or to Africa as a whole. That's rough. So yeah, that's weak, real weak. But train lines are really, really prominent on here. I think that's really interesting, just how prominent railroads are. You get into Oceania. Again, I like when they show Australia, New Zealand with that Southwest and Pacific, so you can see where these islands are in relation to these. Western Australia, Eastern, you get the Southeastern, and you get North-South oriented New Zealand, which is good. And then to North America. So yeah, this is a good atlas if you just want a little more of a, again, you don't have that many plates, but there's still, why does Alaska always get these giant plates? I mean, Alaska gets the same as all of Western Canada. I'm not sure exactly why so many of these atlases really love to show Alaska and Denmark. Those are two places that really like to get some extra detail. So these are pretty good. This is about the scale of the U.S. I would want if I were not American. You do want, this is the one part of the country where you want the biggest zoom in because you just have more detail, more people there. So I think they do a good job with the U.S. there, especially if you're not American. If you are American, you probably want more detail than that, and I'll show you a better one for that. Mexico, again, that's all you get. That's no good. That's no good. That's all you get for the Caribbean. That's no good. That's no good. All right, so you go to South America. You know it's not going to be good because it didn't do well for the other one. So it's just going to be northern, southern, and you do get that. That's pretty good. So I'm surprised you'll even get that. Polar, ocean. These ocean maps are pretty gross. These go for the Nat Geo ones for that. But again, that's a lot of pages for stuff you can get online. So I think this Collins Atlas is good for what it does. It's not trying to be super comprehensive. So you compare that in terms of thickness. The Oxford is a lot bigger. So the Collins is cheaper. It's not trying to be as comprehensive. It's still very good. So if you want a lesser, you just want the gist. You want just the basics. This is a good one to go for. But if you want the best, this is going to be one on the back burner for you. All right, so that brings us to Rand McNally. This is the best presentation of all of these. You get a nice gold box here. Look at this presentation. You got padded size there, gold gilding. Beautiful, right? Rand McNally New International World Atlas. 25th anniversary edition. Everything is just perfect, right? Look at how great this is. Except this one has been discontinued. And this is the most recent one. It's from 1994. Yikes. So it's old. After they made this, Rand basically got out of the World Atlas and they focused strictly on US. So this was their last one. And if you're like me, you'll be a little disappointed that this is the company that discontinued. So thematic maps here. This is before the internet was huge. So you're going to, these were much more useful at the time. But I just think they. One thing I liked about Rand McNally is their cartography. They have the. I've always felt they've had the best combination of nerdy geographers and artists that do their map. You need to have both. You can't just be the artist. You can't just be the nerd. You got to have a bit of both. So, all right. So, oceans, pretty good. You know, not the absolute best. You're still going for Nat Geo on this stuff. Again, there's the Pacific. I like how it shows all the countries there. So it does all the physical maps at once. All right, so it starts off with Europe, and this is where you're going to see this atlas really shine. So right away, try to find the biggest cities. Obvious, really obvious. The different symbols they use, the square with the large circle, the square with this. I mean, the full-in circle for the over millions. You can immediately go to the bigger ones, smaller ones, small towns. Lots of detail here. Again, this is old. This is 30 years old almost. So no, it is 30 years old. But I'll show you when we get right through these what makes this one different. Okay, so this is where it gets great. Incredible detail, just so many plates. This is just Stockholm, Copenhagen, just southern England, just northern England, just Scotland, just Ireland. So you get really good detail. The same you get at the Times, but that's the much bigger book. So you're getting more plates. These are the same scale as the Times, but you're getting more of them. I think the contrast of the urban areas to the non is a little abrupt, especially because it's really more of a fade out. I don't like that aspect of it, but that's a nitpick. That's a serious nitpick there, because I just think the best cartography shows the right number of places, doesn't try to show every tiny little village, every tiny hill. It's appropriate for that scale, what they're showing. So this is just northwest Italy. This is just northeast Italy. This is just central. I mean, you're going to see this type of detail, and unlike the other ones, this level of detail isn't just to Europe and to the U.S. It's other parts of the world get really good treatment here, and that's why this is my favorite. So the Balkans, the Baltics. Yeah, so again, this is 30 years old, so there's some things are not the same as they used to be. I mean, the area around Moscow, just the Donetsk Valley. So you got, the Caucasus here. I was using that one a lot. That's just Central Asia. So you've seen these in some of the other ones, but not as many of them. So here's your full of Japan. I like this one. I would like to see no, actually, I'm sorry. This is the one that does it the way I like it, because you got this one, and then you also have this one. And that's where I think the other ones on Japan fail, because you get Tokyo and Nagoya in there, but I want to see Osaka, Kyoto, Kobe, West. I want to see all this as well. So they do a really good job with that. The Koreas. A big weakness they have is not a plate for just South Korea, but 30 years ago, South Korea was not the major player it is today, so I can see maybe how a newer one would definitely have a South Korea zoom in. These are individual regions in China. I mean, really good stuff. I mean, just a lot of detail. All of Southeast Asia, just the close in. All of Indonesia right there in one, or at least the vast majority of it in one. Blow up of just Java, I mean, this is what you need. Indonesia is over 200 million people. I need Java with its own plate, man. Sumatra, I need this stuff. So I need a double spread. I've been talking a lot about the Philippines in here. I mean, this is the way you show the Philippines in an atlas. This is perfect. And so, yeah, I just think this is the best way of showing these things. Let me go in a little bit more. So northern India, southern India. This right here is just the Punjab, essentially. Just, look at this. I mean, just the Ganges Plain. I mean, just the Calcutta area, Kolkata, over to Dhaka. I mean, yeah, so way more attention to detail here. Here's the Eastern Mediterranean. Of course, this type of stuff will be a lot different from 30 years ago. Northwest, Northeast, and then Southern Africa. Then you go into the detailed ones, just Northeast, just the Nile Delta. That's, I mean, that's or the Nile Valley and the Delta. What a really cool plate that is. You don't really get that one. But that's the kind of plate you need in an atlas. Like a top world atlas needs to have all of the Nile Valley kind of like that. The Horn, the Sahara. I mean, so I've asked for this one and they gave it to me. Morocco, Algeria right there. So here's my West Africa one that I need. I love. I prefer that, and then one for Nigeria. But this is pretty good. And again, 30 years ago to have more detail in Africa than the new ones of the Times and the Oxford. This the Congo Basin here, the Rift Valley here, the lakes. I mean, much better job. Southern Africa, good one of inset for Madagascar, and then a zoom in on just South Africa. So just much better there. So Australia got Western, Northeastern. This is cool to see because you often don't see just how close these are and just how that's actually part of Australia. A couple of those islands just barely off of New Guinea are part of Australia. But then these, so you saw on the Oxford and the Times, they would show this scale. Who cares about that scale? You want either this scale or this scale. So that's what I was saying before. I think the people that were behind this atlas were a combination of geography nerds and artists. They knew how to design it, but they know what to show as well. That's a huge difference. Again, really good. Really there. The one thing I didn't like is they don't have all the ones how they are in relation to each other, except for the big Pacific map that's meant more for physical. And then as an American, they do massive overkill on America. So I'm okay with the spread for Alaska here because of just how much detail has been on everything else. But I think there's a lot of detail here, almost too much for the U.S. Southwest Canada. So you just get BC and Alberta, just Saskatchewan, Manitoba, just the Maritimes. They come back and do the other area later. But yeah, really good here. Again, you can pick out the metro areas very easily. They definitely don't do as good a job on these, like how you would find the mountains, where are the highlands, where are the high plateaus. It's not as obvious. So here, I mean, this is the Four Corners area. This is one of those beautiful spots in the world, national parks, and just, but it's hard to tell where some of the stuff is. I mean, you know how it looks on the ground, and this doesn't do the best job of physical geography, but man, it's just better in most other regards. Then you go even to another level of detail for the U.S. So, and this is Montreal, New England. So, I mean, this is a lot for the U.S. So if you're not American, this is really good detail for the U.S. This is where you get, it's kind of weird how they put the Canadian stuff with the American stuff as opposed to back with when it was Canada. You almost think they wouldn't have any more for Canada because anyway, they go back to it. But so a lot of detail here. I think at this scale, you really see maybe a little bit too much of a abrupt contrast in metro to rural, but yeah, minor complaint. The Texas Triangle right there. Obviously, look how small Austin is in relation to Austin. Only had about metro area well under 1 million people, I believe. So yeah, I mean, really good. Mexico and the Caribbean all in one, perfect. Mexico all in one, they've all had that, but I think only one other one had this. Only the Times. There's so many people here. There's a lot of cities here, a lot of stuff going on here. I need detail. Great Central America. I want it all together in once. You can't get everything if you want to do it at this scale, but this is the correct scale, I believe, to do this because you'll get Panama and the South America map. Caribbean as a whole, individual of some of the islands there. South America, Southern South America. But then you get much better detail with South America in this one than any of the other ones. This is just Peru and Bolivia, Northeast Brazil, Southern Brazil, Northern Argentina, the South. You get that Southeast Brazil there. And then this one is the one I've been asking for. Look at that. Sao Paulo, Rio. So many folks here. I want to see this. This is a good zoom in for Brazil. And then you got these. These are okay. I think of the city maps, these are the best ones of the ones. But I still think these are the types of maps that are probably better online nowadays. But this was from '94, so this was about the best you were going to get for these types of maps before. So I'm not going to go through all of the. I'm going to skip through it. But then you have, all that. So yeah, I wanted to get this one back in the '90s, back when I was in college. It was just too expensive. It was like a $150 book or something like that back then. So I was like, oh, I'll get it later on. But then it was discontinued. I couldn't find it for the longest time. I recently found it after 10 years or so of searching. Actually 20 years of searching. Finally found it. Really good atlas. Like, man, I wish they would. I mean, of all the ones, I wish this was not the one that was discontinued, but it was. Hopefully, you'll see some more of those zoom ins on Africa and South America and some of the other newest atlases, because you've had a little more emphasis on, other parts of the world in more recent years. So hopefully this new wave will be, showing other parts of the world at great detail and not just Europe and North America. Okay, so next up is the Goode's World Atlas. This one has also been discontinued, but it's from 2016, so it's not that old yet. But as you can see, it's Rand McNally. So this is the same company as the previous one, but a different type of atlas, or it should be 2017, but this is still so it's not completely out of date, even though it's out of print. But with it being part of the Rand McNally company, they didn't want to compete or didn't want to have the same type of atlas. So this one has always been more about the thematic maps. This one has always been the go-to one for thematic maps. But like I've been saying, those are the types of maps that are perfectly fine being replaced with online maps. So when this atlas's main thing was its thematic maps, it's kind of rendered not as useful. But these are really good maps. This is the most textbook-like of all of the atlases. This one always felt like a geography textbook. So that's why I always loved it. But again, these are maps you can get online. And but just really good stuff. It's showing here that none of the other ones would do. Hurricane tracks, dead zones, ocean currents. Like, that's not something, I mean, even Nat Geo didn't go too much into ocean currents and stuff. So this is a more classic geography, when you take Geography 101 in college. Soil taxonomy. I don't like that. It's kind of hard to pull that one apart. But anyway, biomes and population, megacities. So again, online is the place for these kind of maps now, but before that, this was the atlas to go to for these maps. Really good job, because it's, again, part of Rand McNally, so it's got more geography nerds along with people that know how to design. So they know that using these types of population maps are better, not better necessarily, but a good way to show more human-oriented things. This is health stuff. So when it's stuff like that, you can often show, because these are the size of the population in relation to the size of the polygons in relation to the population of the country. So anyway, agriculture, yield, different crops, maize, wheat. I mean, this is, of course, these maps I think are still good because they put it all in one spot. So it's so if you were to look at online for different global distribution of various crops, you're going to get it all right here. So this is one section where I think it's still good to have the physical book. Vegetable oils. I mean, tobacco, fisheries, cattle, hogs, natural fibers, rubber, beer. I mean, just way more nerdy kind of academic data here. So I think that's mainly why this one got discontinued, because you can get these online. But weird about this is Rand McNally, their website, they don't even mention the word goods. So it's almost like it doesn't even exist anymore. So there's not only is there not going to be another edition, they kind of pretend like this one doesn't exist. And I think there would still be need, or at least demand, for a website where maybe with a paywall you paid to get this kind of stuff, because these are really good maps, and I would trust these more than Reddit. There's some good maps on Reddit, but cool stuff like this, overlapping of fishing claims, maritime boundaries, the South China West Philippine Sea right here. Mobile phone use back in 2017, that's going to be a lot different now. Just in less than 10 years, things have changed. Internet, I mean, that's changed a lot. Internet usage in the past 10 years. Human trafficking, I mean, so yeah, again, just really good thematic maps, and the kind that you don't buy an atlas for anymore for the most part. But here's where, and again, these are really good. Natural vegetation, good stuff, real good stuff. Agriculture, geology, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff is really good. Federal lands, minerals. But this is where goods always was weak. They're actual maps. I don't think Rand wanted to put their best maps in the goods atlases. Again, you're competing with each other. This is kind of gross. The really abrupt change in urban to rural. I mean, as we all know, it's not that abrupt. But that's just kind of how they show it here. Yeah, not a huge fan of that. But yeah, especially at this plate, you can it's just kind of gross. Just you get the idea where the people live, but they could do that better. So that's always been the weakness, I think, with goods, is just the actual cartography, or excuse me, the actual world plates, not the thematic cartography. So yeah, that's kind of gross, but I mean, this still looks really nice. It's just when they get the cities in there, it starts to look kind of funky. But yeah, I've never really used goods for this. Like, this was never the part of this atlas I've ever used. Again, just those thematic maps. These are the regular plates are not quite as good. Yeah, but discontinued. No mention of it on their website, so it's probably done forever. You can get this atlas online. I paid like, I think, $8 for it, so you can still get it. It's certainly worth that low of a price. Yeah, I mean, you still get some good plate design. Like, what the plate shows is still good, I think. Yeah, it's just the city. So I think the areas where you don't have big cities, it looks better, it looks cleaner. But then when you get to where you have a lot of cities, like India, it starts to look a little bit messy with so much of that red. But that was kind of like my minor complaint with the Rand one. Similar type minor complaint. I think it's a little like here, you can see really how that red kind of looks funky. But, oh, that's gross. That's real gross. All right, so what about Africa? They do some of the thematic maps at the beginning of each chapter. So here's Northwest. This one's pretty good. Very little detail. So again, I always go to the places I know fairly well that are kind of obscure. Very little detail. Like, only lists 2 towns in all of the Gambia, and only maybe 10 at the most for Senegal. So I don't mind that, because the Rand one zooms in and has more. So I like to have, different type of scale. Although this particular one's not my absolute favorite. Using brown for heavy forest cover is kind of an odd choice. Let's see what they're using. Kind of a pink for heavy. Interesting color choice for heavy rainforest cover, because it doesn't look that much different than desert. Because look at that. That's, yeah. Anyway. So not the best, but these were the go-to for thematic maps. You can still find maps like this online that are very good, but they're not usually with one company all together in one spot. You can get them. But yeah, this is the Goode's World Atlas. All right, so now I want to discuss why Rand McNally got out of the international atlas business, because they focus almost exclusively on U.S. atlases. And even though these are road atlases, they're fantastic, just general atlases. So I've been a huge fan of these. I buy them every few years, but they're really, really good, not just for roads. They're great for all kinds of stuff. So each state gets their own plates, so you can really tell the different road types. So again, it's a road atlas, so you can see the different shades of blue and pink to show you different types of road type. But if you're just looking for, want to know some info about Arkansas, you can just, there's Little Rock. You can see the county lines in there pretty well. Green for forested areas. Not at all the atlas you want to use for where the mountains are. So where are the mountains? I don't know. But green for forest. I mean, it's really good. So it isn't just for driving. So if you've seen these, and you probably have at Walmart and stuff, you thought, well, these are just for roads. I don't really need that. I got Google Maps. But these are really good to have on paper, because Google Maps does not at all replace this. These are just much better actual maps. So you get just a zoom in on just the LA metro area. So if you want to have a good atlas of the U.S. and you have maybe one of those world atlases, I would strongly recommend also having this as a supplement, or not even a supplement. This just should be your go-to for the U.S. It's just so much better the way that they've done it. Yeah, I mean, you're going to get much better use from the U.S. out of this. And if you're not American and you want to know a lot about the U.S. and you want to get a good atlas and you don't think this one would be good because it's a road atlas, no, this is still the one you would want regardless of, even if you have a car. If you don't even have a car, it's still the atlas of the U.S. you want. Very few nitpicks with this one. Yeah, it's great. These always go with road trips. Go with me on road trips. I have one tucked away in my car. I use Google Maps and online stuff, but it is nice to have some of these maps you can just pull out real quick when you're in the middle of nowhere. You might have a half a bar of a signal. So, yeah, really cool here. But you can see why, maybe they didn't focus on world atlases anymore, because you're going to make a lot more money. This has less overhead. You're just doing the U.S. Each year you come out with a new one. There's only minor updates. So it's kind of like EA Sports. The new Madden comes out, it's the same as the previous one. But so they're getting profit from that. But yeah, I would like to see them still in the World Atlas business. But this is really good for U.S. Atlas. If you want one of the U.S., this is definitely the one to get. Unless what you want the main thing to be the Atlas for is for national parks and for physical type geography. So a lot more stuff in the Nat Geo one that's oriented towards physical geography. They know what they need to do. They can't outrand Rand when it comes to that U.S. Atlas. So much better job of showing topography. So you can really see where things are. But I don't think these are as good. I think their state maps are not as good. I don't like the way they show different types of roads. So obviously it's not a road atlas, but yeah, it's not my favorite. So I do like how they show the parks. I mean, you can really see where the parks are, the different green shades, whether it be a national park or national forest. So that's, as you would expect from Nat Geo, that's where this one really excels, is physical geography. So I like how the Rand one doesn't even try to bother with physical geography, and this one doesn't even try to be the best road atlas. So they each do their thing right. So I've always had both. They complement each other pretty well. Although, I mean, the LA one for Rand is way better, but this one you can really see the San Gabriel Mountains Monument and the Santa Snow. So yeah, I mean, really good. These are, for what these cost compared to the hardbound atlases, you can justify possibly having both. But If you had to have one or the other, if you want more about the cities and counties, get the RAND, national parks, and physical features, get the Nat Geo. And the last one I'm going to show is just this one I've been using to prop up the book. This book is really important to me from a sentimental standpoint. This book really does mean a lot to me. It's very outdated. It's from the 90s, but it's just an incredible book that I read probably every word, every line in this book many times. It's not a typical atlas. It was much more of an informational. This came out right as the internet was starting to take off as the main thing. So you didn't really have great access to info like this. But what I really liked about it was how it would do countries. So here, alphabetical order, Afghanistan. And it would just go over lots of different things with the country, economy, just different stuff going on. And larger countries had more pages, so Afghanistan would have 4 pages. Go through it. Albania would just have 2. Often interesting choices how the ones would get 2 versus 4. Algeria gets 4. So it's just really great info to have all of this. And of course, this is exactly what the internet is for all this stuff online. But for me to have this before the internet, because I had known a lot about these places and just studied and researched and just loved geography for since I was a little kid. So this was just, I'd go through encyclopedias, like this regular encyclopedias that would cover everything, but this was basically just the countries in the encyclopedias in one book. So I would go through in the encyclopedias and just look at the countries and the cities, but this was basically just that. Nice, colorful, glossy pages. It was just this book really does mean a lot to me. So even though it's not something I ever use at all anymore from a necessity standpoint, it's just, it's so much of what I know and so much of what I love about geography has to do with this book. So yeah, I really do. It does mean a lot to me. But from an actual atlas standpoint, there was never like so you see the maps here aren't that good. It was never like a great atlas for the maps, but just, again, you want to learn about places, and some of the stuff is still going to be good. A lot of it's going to be outdated by far, but yeah, really cool. World Reference Atlas by DK. So that was a look at a handful of the atlases in my collection to show which ones show different parts of the world better than others, and hopefully this gives you a better idea of which one you might want to buy, because again, they're really expensive. You don't want to blow $150 on something that isn't quite what you wanted, and you can also maybe get what you want in a much smaller atlas. You might not need the big ones, or you might just need a paperback one of just the US. But anyway, hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give me a thumbs up to let me know you approve, and subscribe to this channel if you're interested in learning more about geography from a nerd. But yeah, thanks for watching. Geography King signing out. I'd like to give a special thanks to my superior patrons for their support. If you're interested in supporting the channel, you can check out my Patreon page. The link is in the description. As always, thank you very much.